You think you know people. You think you understand what they want, why they act the way they do, what drives them. But Nietzsche would tell you you're wrong, not because you're not paying attention, but because you're looking in the wrong places. You're listening to their words when you should be reading their shadows. You're trusting their smiles when you should be studying their silence. Because every human being is a walking contradiction, a living paradox, and the moment you learn to decode the patterns, everything changes. This isn't about manipulation. It's about clarity. It's about seeing what's actually there instead of what people want you to see. And once you understand these principles, you can't go back to being blind. So let's begin with the foundation, the core truth that unlocks everything else. People don't show you who they are. They show you who they need to be. From childhood, we learn that survival depends on acceptance. So we build versions of ourselves that we think will keep us safe, loved, included. The quiet child who learned that speaking up brought punishment. The loud adult who dominates every conversation because silence once meant invisibility. The people pleaser who says yes to everything because no one's cost them love. These aren't choices, they're adaptations. And Nietzsche understood this deeply. He saw that most people aren't living their truth. They're performing a script written by fear, by trauma, by the need to belong. So the first secret is this. If you want to read someone, stop listening to what they say and start noticing what they protect. Because the walls people build aren't random. They're blueprints of old wounds. Watch what makes someone defensive. That's where the truth hides. You ask a simple question and suddenly their tone shifts. Their body tenses. They deflect, they joke, they change the subject fast. That reaction isn't about your question. It's about what your question touched. Nietzsche believed that defensiveness is the ego's alarm system. It goes off when you get too close to something unresolved, something painful, something they've spent years burying. So if you want to understand someone's core, don't push when they resist. Just note it. Because every defensive moment is a map. It tells you exactly where they're still hurting, exactly what they haven't healed. And the more defensive they are about something, the more power it still has over them. People repeat what they haven't processed. Here's something you've probably noticed but never named. Some people keep ending up in the same situations, same toxic relationships, same career failures, same patterns of self-sabotage. And they'll tell you it's bad luck, bad timing, bad people. But Nietzsche would say it's repetition compulsion. We unconsciously recreate the dynamics we never resolved. The person who grew up with a critical parent keeps choosing critical partners. The person who was abandoned keeps pushing people away before they can leave first. The person who had to fight for attention keeps creating drama to feel seen. They're not choosing these patterns consciously. They're replaying them unconsciously, hoping this time the story ends differently. So when you see someone stuck in a loop, don't judge them. Recognize that they're still trying to solve an old equation, and their patterns will tell you more about their past than their words ever could. The more someone insists, the less they believe it. Listen for the phrases people repeat. I'm totally fine. I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm over it. I've moved on. When someone says something once, maybe they mean it. When they say it 3 times in one conversation, they're trying to convince themselves. Nietzsche understood that repetition reveals doubt. The person who constantly talks about how happy they are is often miserable. The person who keeps saying they don't need anyone is terrified of being alone. The person who brags endlessly about their success is haunted by feelings of inadequacy. Real confidence doesn't need to announce itself. Real peace doesn't need to be defended. So when someone's words feel too loud, too insistent, too perfect, read between the lines, they're not telling you the truth. They're rehearsing the lie they wish was true. People punish others for the crimes of their past. Ever notice how some people overreact to small things? You're 5 minutes late and they explode. You forget to text back and they spiral. You make a minor mistake and they treat you like you betrayed them. This isn't about you. It's about everyone who came before you. Nietzsche saw that people carry ghosts. The person who can't forgive lateness was probably abandoned. The person who needs constant reassurance was probably neglected. The person who punishes small errors was probably held to impossible standards. They're not seeing you clearly. They're seeing you through the lens of their wounds. And until they heal those wounds, they'll keep making you pay for someone else's sins. So when someone's reaction seems disproportionate, don't take it personally. Understand that you triggered an old pain and their response is about history, not the present moment. Silence is the loudest confession. Most people think communication happens through words, but Nietzsche knew better. He knew that what people don't say is often more revealing than what they do. Notice what topics someone avoids. Notice when they go quiet. Notice the questions they never answer directly. That silence is screaming. The person who never talks about their family probably has family wounds. The person who deflects every time you ask about their feelings probably learned feelings weren't safe. The person who changes the subject when you mention commitment probably got hurt the last time they committed. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a border. It marks the territory they're not ready to let you enter. And if you're patient, if you're observant, that silence will tell you everything, because people guard what matters most. And what they guard reveals what still has power over them. How someone treats service workers reveals their soul. Nietzsche believed that character isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when you think no one important is looking. So watch how someone treats the waiter, the janitor, the cashier, anyone they perceive as beneath them or irrelevant to their goals. If they're rude, dismissive, or condescending, you're seeing their real character. Because kindness that only appears for people who can benefit you isn't kindness. It's strategy. But the person who shows respect to everyone, regardless of status or utility, that's someone who has integrated their values. They don't perform goodness, they embody it. So if you want to read someone's true nature, don't watch how they treat their equals. Watch how they treat people who can't do anything for them. That's where the mask falls off. Jealousy is just desire in disguise. When someone constantly criticizes another person, when they can't stop pointing out flaws, when they seem obsessed with tearing someone down, Nietzsche would tell you to look deeper. Because hatred is rarely pure. Often it's envy wearing a disguise. The person who mocks someone's confidence secretly wishes they had it. The person who belittles someone's success is angry they haven't achieved it. The person who gossips about someone's freedom resents their own cage. We don't hate what's foreign to us. We hate what reminds us of what we've denied in ourselves. So when someone's criticism feels excessive, ask yourself what quality they're attacking, because that quality is probably something they want but believe they can't have. And instead of admitting the desire, they destroy the mirror. People show you their priorities through their time, not their words. Everyone says they care. Everyone claims things matter to them, but Nietzsche would say, don't listen to declarations. Watch where someone actually invests their time and energy. The person who says family is everything but never calls home. The person who talks about self-improvement but scrolls for hours. The person who claims you're important but always cancels plans. Their actions are the truth. Their words are the story they tell themselves to avoid guilt. Time is the most honest currency we have. You can lie with your mouth, but your calendar doesn't lie. So if you want to know what someone truly values, ignore what they say. Look at their schedule. Look at what they make time for when they're tired, stressed, or busy. That's where their real priorities live. The need to be right reveals a fragile ego. Some people can never admit they're wrong. They'll twist logic, shift blame, rewrite history, anything to avoid saying, I made a mistake. Nietzsche saw this as weakness, not strength, because the person who can't be wrong is terrified of being worthless. They've tied their identity to being right, being smart, being superior. So every mistake feels like a threat to their entire sense of self. But the person who can admit fault, who can laugh at their own errors, who can say I was wrong and mean it, that's someone with a solid core. They don't need to be perfect because they know their value isn't conditional. So when you meet someone who fights to the death over being right, don't see arrogance, see fear. See a person who never learned that mistakes don't erase worth. Generosity without boundaries is manipulation. This one is subtle. You meet someone who's incredibly giving, always helping, always available, always saying yes. At first it seems beautiful, but then you notice something. They keep score. They remind you of what they've done. They guilt you when you can't reciprocate. Nietzsche would call this false generosity, because real giving expects nothing. But performative giving is a transaction disguised as kindness. These people give because they're afraid of being unwanted. They give to create debt to ensure you need them to control the relationship through obligation. And when you try to set boundaries, they crumble, because their giving was never about you. It was about securing their place in your life. So if someone's generosity feels heavy if it comes with strings, trust that feeling. Real kindness is light. Manipulation always weighs you down. People become what they were denied. Here's a pattern Nietzsche observed throughout human behavior. The child who was ignored becomes the adult who demands attention. The child who was controlled becomes the adult who craves freedom at any cost. The child who was criticized becomes the adult who either shrinks or overcompensates with arrogance. We don't just carry our wounds. We build our personalities around them. We become the opposite of what hurt us, or we become exactly what hurt us, unconsciously repeating the cycle. So when you see someone with an extreme trait, ask what they were denied. The person obsessed with wealth probably grew up poor or insecure. The person obsessed with appearance probably felt invisible or ugly. The person obsessed with control probably felt powerless. Their extremes are compensations, and once you see that, you stop judging. You start understanding that everyone is just trying to fill a hole that was carved long ago. You've learned to see now. Not just the surface, but the structure underneath. You understand that people aren't mysteries, they're patterns, and those patterns are written in childhood, reinforced by pain and expressed through behavior. Nietzsche didn't teach this so you could control people. He taught it so you could stop being controlled by illusions, so you could see clearly, respond wisely, and connect deeply. Because when you stop reacting to masks and start seeing souls, everything shifts. You become harder to manipulate, easier to trust, impossible to fool. And most importantly, you start seeing yourself with the same clarity. Every judgment you make about others is a mirror. Every pattern you notice is one you carry too. So use this knowledge not as a weapon, but as a light. See people as they are. Understand them, and in doing so, free yourself from the need to fix, control, or change them. That's the art, that's the power, that's Nietzsche's gift.